Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, that's great. Hello, everybody. Accessibility. Gosh, sometimes people really confuse what is accessibility and what it means to them and what it means to others. And to me, accessibility, usability, and inclusion are closely related aspects of the same thing. And it's really about this last line there, a web that works for everyone, not just the able, not just the people without disabilities, and not just the people with disabilities, everybody. Because not everybody knows they have a disability, and not everybody accepts that they have a disability. So, damn, choosing the top there wasn't a good idea. Anyway, so have you all heard of the contract for the web? Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the web, was one of the people involved in this, but there was lots of experts around the world. And the idea is to make the internet affordable and accessible to everyone. So affordable, especially nowadays during COVID, became really more important. As I mentioned earlier, you have governments having to buy laptops and provide mobile internet connectivity to students who didn't have a computer or anything at home, because now they're having to learn at home remotely. So accessibility, it's like that pyramid with Wi-Fi and power at the bottom. They're the basics. You need to have a device, you need to be online. But when you're online, it needs to be accessible for everybody. And what does it mean? It means availability. So things need to be available to everyone. There needs to be inclusion, nobody excluded. It needs to be usable. It needs to follow standards, these guidelines which people have come together and collaborated on to say, this is how you should do things. It needs to be predictable. I mentioned it earlier in a forum post on the MUA, the Moodle User Association, of which I'm a committee member. I mentioned it earlier on one of their forums about, it's one of the things that just drives me nuts is when you see a Moodle site and they might have, it's like random course format. It's like every module you go into, it's like, oh, it's a different one. Oh, it's laid out differently. Oh, wow, it's grid. Oh, no, it's this. Oh, wow, it's collapsed topics. Oh, it's back to topics. It's weekly. And for students of all types, with disabilities and without, that's just problematic. Okay? If you want to find your slides for week one in a module, it should be predictable. And then reducing negative impact of disabilities. So if a system isn't built with accessibility in mind, you are going to have some impact. And it's about reducing that. So what I was going to bring in here, I'm going to bring them in small so that they don't get impacted by the subtitles. So I will be adding the link into the course later, but the UK government came out with these posters on how to design for accessibility. They're available on GitHub, as they should be. So they start off with, let's see. Oop, that was not what I was trying to do. There we go. They start off with going through designing for users on the autism spectrum. Like, do use simple colors, don't use bright contrasting colors. Write in plain language, and so on. So each one of these is for different aspects, different affordances you might want to be considering. Users not necessarily are blind, but users with low vision, or users with dyslexia, or users with physical or motor disabilities, those who are deaf or hard of hearing, or maybe have something like tinnitus, users with anxiety. So when you're thinking, oops, I'll just go back. So when you're thinking about designing for users with a disability, you have to think about all of these and understand all of the different aspects that comes across and that they come across when they're using it. Or they might be using a screen reader. They might want captions because they're in a noisy environment. They might want captions because they've got tinnitus and they don't want to risk a really loud noise triggering it. They might be using captions because although they can understand the person and their accent isn't too bad, they are not an English language first speaker. And so having the written text there, even if it is sometimes a bit weird, is helpful to their comprehension. Or maybe they just like reading it rather than listening to it. So captions and accessibility methods really help a lot of people who maybe or maybe not having a disability. So before we go any further, as people know, whenever I'm doing these sessions, I'd like to make you think, which is the opposite of what Steve Krug likes for usability on the web, but I'm going to make you think. I want you to think for a moment, and I want you to write down how accessibility impacts your practice as a teacher, as an administrator, as a learner. Just for a moment or two.
Gavin, I'm unable to hear you.
Great, okay, I now know what was wrong. Sorry, I was muted. Forget that. Sorry, I was wondering why it wasn't handling my subtitles, and it's because while I was asking you to think about stuff, I had muted myself. That's embarrassing. Okay, is it now going to pick up my subtitles? Yes, it is. Hey, we're all human. So, in web content, in Moodle, you use the auto editor usually. Some people use TinyMCE, but hey. And it's got some various checkers in it, a screen reader checker, and it prompts when adding an image. Those who know in 3.9, my company added in 5 fixes into the auto editor to make it more accessible. They're from our overall product that we're releasing in August, which includes a completely new editor as well. We took Atto and forked it and made it into a better editor. And it is important to use the features that are available, but also you want to be able to consider things like text, So what should you be doing when you're creating text? And I'm not going to go through all of these. They're there for a reason, but I will just read through them. So color contrast, difference between colors. Avoiding meaning with color alone. So many people use green for yes, good, go, and red for stop, bad. Having consistent naming. I've seen so many PowerPoint slides dumped up into a course with slides 1 or slides or lecture slides, and it's the same for every single week. It's consistent, but it's not consistently different enough. And then using lists to structure content, having strong and not bold, and EM and not I. Now that's a semantic difference, but it is really important. One is visual, one is semantic. Then you've got link tips. It's about having descriptive links, not having click here. Can you imagine you go to a page and there's 5 or 6 different paragraphs talking about different resources, and below them it has click here related to each resource it's talking about. Someone with a screen reader comes along and they go, okay, so list all the links, and it goes click here, click here, click here, click here, click here, click here. It's really helpful. But also, if you as a user go in and aren't using a screen reader, and you are looking at them all, you have to read the content above to find out what the link is about. So that link should make sense. That descriptive aspect. It should be like the name of the web page you're going to, the name of the resource that you're going to. And often that's not the case. It's the most common problem I've seen in Moodle generated content is people doing this. And it really doesn't help that Moodle actually encourages this behavior. Again, that's one of the things in our product that we have fixed. Heading tips, essential for long content. If you just have this wall of text, it's incomprehensible to anybody. You know, you have to read nearly beginning to end to find the little bit that you want. And so having headings makes everyone able, and that's every one word again, web for everyone able to navigate that content better, comprehend it better, go back to the part they want faster. So then it provides context. And having hierarchies is really important. The auto editor stops you doing repeating a H1, which is usually the course title or the site title, depending where you are. Then you've got image tips, adding in descriptions. This is one of the changes we put into 3.9. Beforehand, there was a small text box, just one row of adding in an alt description for an image. And below it said, description not necessary. If you don't know anything about WCAG, the Web Content Guidelines, or you haven't had any technical training, you might go, yeah, no, it's a self-explanatory image, it's not that complex, tick it. Wrong, but you don't know you're wrong. You're not being willfully disrespectful, you're just being ignorant of the technology. But should you need to know the technical stuff? So we changed it to that. It's a text area. It has a character count, so people go, oh wow, I can do up to 125 characters. Small psychological nudging for interface design. And the text changed from description not necessary to this image is decorative only. And that is the issue. And it's subtleties like this. You don't need to teach people every single thing about create accessible design. The systems need to move them towards accessible content design as it goes. And that's why, like there, when you go to SlideShare with PowerPoint, it has 2 options. It's like right in the middle of your screen, use subtitles, or present live, which also creates a transcript. So they're 2 cool things to have. Multimedia tips, again, you know, use the editor or the player that's there, stop embedding from somewhere else and put in captions, put in a transcript. You know, it's important. And if you can, obviously, sort of audio descriptions and stuff as well. Table tips. And I'm zipping through these because I do want you to be considering this in a whole. Some people say that, you know, they like using tables for layout. And I'm going, yes. And at one time of the world, people used to think the world was flat. Both of those things are not true. You know, the tables for layout is not a good thing. If you want to be a web designer, learn how to do web design, learn how to lay out a page correctly. Otherwise, Just keep it simple. There's no reason to be a web designer when you're creating content. It's the material, not the design. Captions. Having a caption for a table, explaining what it's about. Headers. You know, people fake headers. Make them bold, make them big. But rather than just using the table header tag, and they're going, yeah, but it doesn't look the way I want to make it look. Design is part of the theme. It's part of CSS. That's where it should be fixed. Not in every single course, fixed differently to make it less usable for everybody. No merge cells. Now, some people say that merge cells is an accessibility myth. Very few people know how to use them well. But more importantly, some of the screen readers don't handle merge cells well, especially since people use them in different ways. So it's best to avoid making a mistake rather than having to be absolutely precise in it. And no nested tables, again, just complexity in navigating for everybody and screen readers. Equation tips. So again, STEM, really important. Moodle's awesome for it. You've got some amazing quiz questions. Work with it. Stack works with it well. Often people want to have equations. Stop using images. You know, just use the tools that are there, and they will be accessible to other people. So, and then you've got something like Wirus, which takes it further and makes it, and like you can do handwriting analysis of equations. I really must try that sometime with my handwriting because I can't read it. I'm not sure the Wirus is going to be able to either. Well, I think so, but that'll be interesting. I think it's called Math Type now is their product. Really good product, but it's a challenge for them. Can they interpret my handwriting? So now another bit of reflection from your side. I'd like you to open up when your own Moodle sites and I look at some of the books or the labels or the pages that are being created in one of those courses. And I want you to make a note on how you're going to improve the content based on even just what you've heard now. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for that, okay? Maybe 3 minutes. And this time I won't mute myself, so I don't forget.
So Gavin, we had a quick question. What was the tool that you're using to generate the captions?
I'll explain it all afterwards as PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay.
No, it's actually just Office 365. But I'm literally going to go into that next. So
Okay.
I have seen the captions on PowerPoint, and I'm glad you're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I didn't ever think that that could be used for your Zoom presentation. So I'm glad that you're demonstrating that, Gavin. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I've been at 7 conferences over the last 2 months, and my presentations were the only ones with captions. It makes me very sad. And it's only because people don't know and don't realize. So.
And Gavin, I'll add just a observation to what you just said. You know, accessibility is really nothing new. We've known about this for what, 10, 15 years probably or more, of course. But as much as we talk about it, as much as we hear about it, very few people do it. And that's what I find. So again, when you say that you were the only one, that doesn't surprise me from what I've been seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just reading through the comments here while people are doing this. So I'm going to give you still have at least a minute there. Hope you are looking at your own Moodle courses while we're just nattering in the background. Thank you, Randy Thornton, there for adding in the URL to the UK Home Office posters. I was going to do that anyway in the course, but I'll do it afterwards. Hey, sir. So Janelle mentions there that she's used different themes. There we go. Your time is up, mister. Time to come back in, hand back the boat. So they've used different themes and not sure which is best from an accessibility standpoint. You just need to get them tested. It's simple as that. Your e-learning director or your IT director or whatever is probably not the best people to go to unless they've got an accessibility team within their team. You want to get your inclusion office or get some tools to actually test them. I'm not going to go through the sort of the cake of accessibility here. I'll share a link to that later. The problem is there's little demand for accessibility features. That's the thing. See, Joan, a lot of people just don't know, or that they even have disabilities. Some people who might have dyslexia or very mild dyslexia don't realize it. You know, they think they might be stupid, or other people who are on the various spectrums or looking at neurodiversity, or people like me who actually need glasses for reading close to me now. You know, any men over 45, your eyesight just goes boop. It's great fun. Okay, Office documents. Now, all of you are completely unusual, so you have no courses which are just full of PDFs. I really wish you didn't, because PDFs are probably one of the worst possible things to be using for accessibility. HTML, so much better. If you're gonna, you really have to consider, why would you be putting this PDF there? And I'll tell you why. Most lecturers tell me they use PDFs so people can't edit my stuff and steal it. You're being paid to share. As a teacher, that's part of your job. You know, it's like, so sorry if any of you are offended by that, but it irks me a lot. But anyway, so PDFs, Word documents and whatever, and people go, yeah, but a PDF, it's easy to print, but people don't print so much anymore. I do, because I'm a heathen and I like printing and reading on paper, and I like marking up on paper, but people like using Office documents. And most institutions are either 365 or Google Suite, which is what I'm going to address now. Accessibility inside of Office is just awesome. Microsoft have gone further than any of the other technical companies in using and supporting those with disabilities and building accessibility stuff. And a lot of people don't think about disabilities or think about accessibility features that have been built in. If you've ever used an elevator, well, that was for disability support. If you ever tabbed your way through a form on a web page, well, that's to do with disabilities. And if you're watching captions because you find my accent a little bit weird, or maybe you're just in a noisy outdoors area and turned off the sound, or you're listening to that really good TV show while you're also in this, that's fine. So captions help all people. So they've got some really good resources on their website, and I do provide a few links to that, and they break it down into these different areas, like you might have vision, hearing, neurodiversity, learning, mobility, mental health, and I'll give you another link for a really good breakdown of the different types of disabilities that you need to consider. And there's just so many, as somebody said, but that's why you just go with a standard quality content all along, and that will help. One of the other great things is they've got so much support material available around like how to use the screen reader and all the shortcuts built into Office and into Windows. Or they've got their learning tools, which helps improve comprehension of while you're reading through stuff. And they've got an accessibility checker built into Word. Now that just knocks the socks off people when they see it. They just don't get it. And I will show you that now in a moment. But then they've also got training. And they've even brought in now like the equivalent of a badge for sort of accessibility training. So they've even got templates. People go, well, I don't know where to start. Well, actually start here. They've got accessibility templates of PowerPoints and Word and so on. But even if you don't start with that, they can help you fix what you've got. So here is a screenshot of this PowerPoint. And when I did it initially, I actually had it in Google Suite and I brought it into 365. I'm moving my whole business and all of our documentation into 365 and leaving Google Suite behind. The developers are staying in Google Suite. So over on the right, there's a section for accessibility checking, and it's showing that there's a few slide titles missing and the reading order. I know you can't read it, it's small. That's why I'm explaining what it is, but it's just built in. And there it's sort of zoomed in a little bit. You can see that on this particular one, slide 17, it has selected that piece of text, and that's going to be the slide title. Okay. And here's that cake I was talking about. I'm going to very briefly talk about this layer cake of accessibility. The first thing is people are using devices, and those devices have a large number of accessible options to be able to make their experience better. Whatever device they are, learners or users need to learn how to use that particular device to its best. And then you've got the app. Is it an app or is it a browser? And then they've got their own accessibility aspects on it now. And then you've got the application framework. That's like Moodle. Has it been built properly? Got all the ARIA tags and so on that's needed to navigate? Is it built for tested with screen readers? Then the theme, as someone mentioned, how the site is configured, how courses are configured and what navigation they have, then the teacher content, and then the student content. So, but that aside, the screenshot we're looking at here is a Word document on the left, and it found that this image didn't have alternate text. And so over on the right, when I put in a layer cake of accessibility layers. The immersive reader, just brilliant. Been told by someone who's a mother of a kid with autism that this really helps them with their reading. And there's loads of stuff on Microsoft about where it helps. But when you look at it, what the options are here, it's a full page zoomed in, just one line highlighted and segmented out by syllables, complementing the slide above, which showed that. And then when you zoom in, you've got column width options, page colors, line focus. Is it one? Is it more? Is it broken into syllables, extra spacing? Is it read aloud to you? These are just kind of things that are just built there. So if you're going to want to share a document to make it as inclusive as possible, why would you not give them a Word document that they could then use the Word tools to make their experience better? Oh, but I don't want them downloading anything. That's just not being inclusive. Be inclusive. Let them use the tools that they have to make their experience better. And then when you go to save a Word document, if you do want to share it because some will want to print it, you make sure that it's created correctly as a PDF that's structured accessibly. And it's one of the options. If you say it as a PDF, you'll be able to have that it's structured properly, it's tagged correctly. You can even create bookmarks automatically from the headings. These are things within Word. And that's why half of this presentation is talking about these kind of tools, because when a lot of your content going into Moodle or into any online platform is documents, that is where you need to start your accessibility, not by the time you get in. Also, great video training available there on, like, there's 3 lessons on Outlook, 7 for Word, 3 for Excel, 5 for PowerPoint. There's just no excuse for not creating accessible Office documents. So now I'm going to ask you to go and open up a recent Word document or PowerPoint on your machine. And if you've got Office 365, go to Review and click on Accessibility Checker. Okay. And you can also do this online if you're using the web-based version of 365. There's an accessibility checker there as well. If you don't have Office, or you can also go and just even look at some documents you've got and just see, have you been structuring them well? Hi, Dan. Don't know what to say, man. I have no idea. When you compare the resources that Google and Office give for accessibility, the Microsoft stuff is, at least on their online materials. It's much better, and also the tools. But look at your device as well, and what your device is having. See, do they have accessibility support? Do they tell you they've got accessibility support? Hey, Katie just said there, ouch, the syllabus I'm looking at needs assistance. I usually say, Katie, that they need a hug.
That's great that they need a hug. I love it. Yes, it needs a hug. The accessibility checker returned so many things to address.
But now, you now know what you can do to make it better.
Exactly. Thank you.
Amy saying there, thank you for discussing allowing download and explaining how that promotes inclusivity. Yeah, I mean, we're not an exclusive club here, you know. It's like people go, oh yeah, we want to do all this online and whatever. No, we want to. It's like a learning family. It's like, you know, you want everybody involved and supporting each other. Richard Ullman going, I think a lot of the PDF advice dates back to pre-Office 365 Google Drive days, when users were starting to access docs on mobile devices but didn't have Word on their phone. Yeah, but they could always have given an RTF or a HTML file. Pardon me. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. Laurie asking, are the templates only available with 365? No, actually, the templates are just downloadable, I believe. They're not even a 365 login. They're not gated. But you can go hunt them down and find that. Randy, yeah, so any ASR or automatic subtitling can sometimes throw up a few interesting ones. I was reading about a keynote conference, a very massive conference or keynote presentation at a massive conference there recently, where someone had to apologize for what was said by the transcription. So I'll apologize now. If it said anything offensive, I deeply apologize. If it said anything funny, that was intentional. Michael, yeah. Sorry. The read aloud option is amazing. So glad to focus on one thing this session and have a key takeaway. Yeah, Tara, and that's what I want for people to hear. I want people to look at all of these different things we're going through and going, that will improve my practice and help my learners. Or I can tell somebody about that and help them help their learners. It's about improvement. We can't all do everything instantly. It'd be great if we could, but we can't. Okay, we're human. Most of us, at least I've been accused of being human sometimes. But while we are human, we have only so much time. So you can't do everything. There's an infinite amount of things to do and a finite amount of us. Yeah, Janelle, I don't know without looking at it, yeah? I am suggesting, Mary, that a MS Word document should be downloaded. Absolutely. It should be, if it's not a web page, if you want to download, a Word document should be the document of choice. Full stop. There's absolutely no argument about that, from my perspective. So Randy watches TV with the captions turned on, and it's a real eye-opener how bad they often transcribe. Yeah. I sometimes wonder in news stations, do they do it deliberately? So, okay, let's move along. Actually, before anyone else, has anyone else got any last comments about how wonderful? Did you open up a Word document and review it, and was it already perfect? If you are, please put up your hand. Tara's going, my teachers often want to know if my company's content is accessible and my head spins. Now I have an amazing start just with assignment doc created in Word. I bet many teachers don't even know how it's there. Yeah, no, they don't. I mean, Google has some good stuff as well, and they also have a slide transcription thing as well, but they just don't have the same depth. You had your points in red. Yes. Oops. Okay, Google Suite. So we showed you all of the stuff from Office. This is all of the stuff from Google. It summarizes all the key things, gives you information on how to create accessibility documents and how to use accessibility tools to create that, how to use a screen reader, for using a braille display, how to present slides with captions, or type with your voice, which is great as well, and make your documents and presentations more accessible. And it goes through all of the basics. You can also turn on things like screen reader and high contrast colors, or in your slides, you can turn on screen reader support and on screen magnifier support as well. Someone asked about OpenOffice there recently. Nothing. LibreOffice and OpenOffice have nothing like these, unfortunately. But they do have PDF accessibility, yes, but not within their primary document type. So I want to just stop there, and what I would like is for other people now to share their experience in their institution, if that's okay. How long have we got left? Was it?
We have about 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay, that's cool. So it does mean that we're not going to have the captions for people talking using this method, but I will repeat any key things. So anyone would like to grab their mic? Go for it. Well, Tara, that was covering Google Suite. Literally, none of those features within Office are available. It's just about basic things. So it's really unfortunate, and I do use both.
I will, since no one's jumping in to ask, I'm going to just make my general observation. And I really appreciate you putting, HTML, basic HTML at the top of your list, because I think we forget how the web browsers all have the accessibility for basic HTML built into them. But it's hard to get faculty to break away from their PDF habit. That's one of the things that I notice. And I think some of it does tie into your comments about they don't want people stealing their stuff.
Yeah, so just to repeat that, it is very much about the experience of having faculty not wanting to move from PDFs because they don't want to steal it. I think it is a shame. Anybody else either want to type a comment or ask a question over audio?
I'll add a comment to the PDF issue. One advantage of a PDF is that it provides a very consistent view of what that document looks like. So if I create a PDF, I know that my students will see it exactly as I created it. Whereas if I give them a Word document and they open it up, depending upon how their margins and their Word is set up, it may look different to them than what I intended. So couldn't I argue that a PDF for consistency is good?
So the argument there is that a PDF will make you your students see it exactly as you intended it. So you have, by saying that statement, anyone who is blind is not important. You certainly don't mean that. I'm just saying, but that approach, if you say, well, visually it's important this way, if it is, then create an alternate version that conveys every single thing without requiring it to be visual. If your content is only visual, I would have to say it's probably bad content. It's certainly inaccessible content. And that's a terrible thing to say to teachers, and for them to go, well, I make it look so amazing. Yeah, but that excludes people who cannot see it. Or 1 in 10 men are colorblind. If you use color on your document, you're excluding them. 1 in 20 women are colorblind. Others have short-sightedness. So all of these issues, you cannot rely on visual. So I just don't think that's an excuse. I understand it, but I don't think it's an excuse. Anybody else?
I just wanted to ask, Gavin, is it possible, so say I have a faculty member who recorded themselves doing their PowerPoint presentation and didn't use the captions. Is it possible to have PowerPoint go back and generate those captions, kind of like YouTube generates captions?
Oh, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Although I think one of their streaming systems can. I haven't tried that, but this is being generated on the fly and it's not being stored. Okay, this is just about captions and PowerPoint and recording.
Maybe like
So I know there's lots of software out there that can do that for you.
put the captioning in
There's
through
AI
there
as
and then
well.
pop that link in, I would think.
Sorry, who's that?
It's Amy, sorry.
Oh, hey, Amy. Go on. I only heard half what you said. Sorry.
Sorry,
Say
I was on two computers. I was saying that if they had already pre-recorded that PowerPoint and it's like a video, they could pop it onto like YouTube or Vimeo and throw in the closed captions there after the fact. Like you can actually have it generate the closed captions and then you just go in and correct them to make sure that they're accurate. So you're not even necessarily having to type an entire transcript the whole time.
Yeah, you could certainly do that as long as you don't mind your content being on YouTube. And but I would say, think accessibility, right? Is having a file that you are forcing students to stream, okay, accessible? I would say no. On one level, you are forcing them every time they view it. If they're, let's say, looking at it on their phone, lots of students look at content on phones, you are forcing them to pay for that every time they watch it. Rather than, let's say, using the Moodle mobile app, putting that video with the caption file into the Moodle course, and then they can download it onto their phone with the app, and then it's offline, and they don't have to pay for it every time. So that's certainly not affordable and accessible.
Do you by any chance have an example captions file for video in YouTube? Because I have a subtitles one, like a VTT file,
That's it.
That's what you would use for the captions as well?
Yeah, so you can basically, you can put it into YouTube, also generate your captions, download the file, tidy it up, and use it and the MP4 into Moodle, and that's fine. And that's what a lot of people do.
Okay.
So that's one reason why a text transcript is also a WCAG standard. Absolutely, Randy. Definitely. So Stream generates captions. That was the other system I was thinking of. Sorry.
Stream.
I'm not a Microsoft fanboy or Google fanboy. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm just sharing what I do know. So I'm just going to show you this. This is what somebody asked earlier about, back to it was, about knowing and knowing if your content is accessible. I think Floyd going, I often receive requests for proposals that include a requirement to meet certain standards. When I look at standards, they contain dozens of pages with hundreds of details. And it's impossible to meet every requirement. I don't think it is. I think the key thing is, if you change your practice to think accessibility first, it isn't hundreds of things. You can just say, this is how we do content. People might go, but that's not super cool and sexy. Well, you know, is it good learning material or is it good learning material? It doesn't always have to be super cool and sexy, but it can be too. So remember I talked about links. I'm going to start this. I want to do very quick. Have I 2 minutes? I have 3 minutes. So one of the things that we've done, so we're working in around accessibility, and we're releasing next month an accessibility audit and intervention platform with Moodle. And this is an example of one of the things that we're doing. I'll just have to make it small so that the captions are still there. So bear with me while I fight with my browser. Here we go. So you know all of those wonderful URLs that people put in there into their Moodle site. So our engine goes through all of that sort of Moodle HTML stuff and into every nook and cranny and then analyzes all of it. And for one site, we generated 640 million QA test results. That was great fun. So here we have one of our fixing tools. So we've got a set of finding and reporting tools and a set of fixing wizards to help fix things. So for example, here on this row, the text in the link was bbc.com linking to the BBC webpage. So we go off and find the name of the web page from, or the title of the web page. And so then we can suggest, well, actually, let's change what was the URL into the actual name of the web page. Same one here. Instead of rte.ie, we're suggesting it changes to RTE, Ireland's National Television and Radio Broadcaster. And you might want to say, well, actually, let's say it's the home page. We can put that in there. Same with Brickfield and same with Moodle.com. And the person can then bulk fix those in their course. We have the same with italics, the same with bold. And I think these are one of the key things. You know, it's not just useful finding that you've got all of these sort of problems. You have to be able to do a little bit more. Oops, a few more messages there. And so that's key. And this gives you, oh, so let's see. Text thing should be descriptive. Well, let's go and fix that, shall we? Here we go. And we can either do it manually or let's just delete that for a moment. So one of the things we did as well was, you know, often people will just paste in a URL like that and then try and turn it into a link. Well, this will tell you to use the actual web page immediately and also fix it for you. I think it's nice. Remember I told you about helping people rather than just telling them they're doing it wrong? You can also look at your web page and then find out what is wrong and right quite easily. Get an overview of what's wrong here. And maybe perhaps, and actually these are PDFs, but they're accessible PDFs, which gives you all the key tips on what you're doing. But also one of the cool things we did was we made a change to, which shows up here. See the way they're using the actual web page names? So that's using our special engine that's built for going off and retrieving all those web names. I'll just turn editing on here. So that was actually using more of the filter you've got in Moodle, that really cool one that everybody uses of URL to link or URL to embedded image. So we do URL to accessible link, and we disable and we delete the other one, which shouldn't be in Moodle. So, because actually that filter creates two inaccessible items within your content. Shouldn't be there. So we have a replacement for that. But there are some of the type of things that we do, and the other part was just here. Actually, I'll be showing that later. I'm not going to go into anything more, but that's just like showing the passes and fails for things. So anyway, that's me. And Brickfield is our company, and myself and my wife, Karen, for those who know Karen. She's our Chief Product Officer. So if you want to get in contact about anything, please do, or come along to the vendor session later or whatever, and we can have a chat. And I'm going to just turn on those links in that course now. I had shared some of the links to the Microsoft stuff. Hold on, I think it was accessibility basics, turn on editing, and unhide. Okay, so there's some various links in there on tips from Microsoft and whatever. And then also, I'll just drag this over here. Oops. There's a piece in here about how to make Word documents accessible, PowerPoint, Excel, PDFs, nice LinkedIn learning course, screen reader facts, and then accessibility fundamentals from Microsoft. So, and one point there, Rick Jar saying, for accurate captions, rev.com, you find affordable. If you want to find out about rev.com, Rick, go and look it up on Twitter and elsewhere about, there's some very interesting stories of how they treat their captioners. So yeah, it might still be hidden. I don't think so. It should be there. So I will just double check after this. So thank you very much, everybody. And please feel free to get in contact or follow me on Twitter or in any of the sessions.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you, Gavin, for another great presentation. And I will be adding the link to the recording right after it finishes up. There's like a finalization step, but I'll get it in there shortly.
Okay, thank you. Just want to stop
Thank you.
sharing. And find me in Remo later. I'll be in the various breaks as well. So, but I'm going to go and get a coffee now.